It was around sunset when I entered the house. In the courtyard, my mother and Nasiba Bua were sitting together. The moment they saw me walking towards the house, Nasiba Bua put her finger in her mouth and looked at my mother, saying, "Your daughter is growing up well, now 15 years old. You should keep an eye on her. At this age, she shouldn't be out with her friends till evening. It's not good for a young girl to be so carefree. You must keep a sharp watch over her, like a hawk. You may provide her everything she desires, but keep an eagle's eye on her. Only then can you keep your daughter in check. Otherwise, you never know when she may stray." My mother didn't like this at all, and neither did I. How dare she interfere in our personal matters? I frowned and walked to my room, ignoring her. My mother asked me to make tea for Bua, but I was so angry with her that I ignored my mother's request and stayed in my room, only coming out after Nasiba Bua had left. I had gone to my friend Pino's house that day. Pino's house wasn't far from ours, and we had been childhood friends. After school, we would often spend a lot of time together. Since my father had passed away many years ago, my mother had been the sole provider for the family, working at Chaudhry Sahib's house, and she had managed to educate me up to matriculation. Now, with my exams over, I was left at home with nothing much to do. So I would often visit Pino or another friend to pass the time. My mother's health had been deteriorating, and she couldn't do much around the house anymore. After working at Chaudhry Sahib's, she would come home exhausted, and all the household responsibilities had fallen on me. That evening, my mother asked, "Can you go to Dinu Chacha and bring some milk?" She seemed too tired to make the trip herself. I felt uneasy about going all the way alone. How can I go so far by myself, I thought. But I had no choice. When I told Pino about this, she said, "My father doesn't let me leave the house anymore. He says I'm growing up and I shouldn't be roaming around carelessly anymore." Hearing this made me sulk. I didn't want to go either, but I had to. I reluctantly went to Dinu Chacha's barn. When I arrived, Dinu Chacha was alone, and when he saw me, he smiled and looked at me with a strange kind of fondness. "I haven't seen you in so long," he said, still smiling. "I remember when you were just a little girl, and I used to visit your house. You used to come here with your mother. You've grown up so beautifully." His gaze made me feel uncomfortable. Something about his words didn't sit right with me, but I just smiled awkwardly and didn't respond. He went on, "You've always been so lovely, and I've watched you grow up. Since the day after this, I've been seeing you, and you've really grown up," Dinu Chacha said. I smiled at his words. I remembered that he had been a very close friend of my father. As I carried the milk back home, I couldn't help but think that my mother was right. The people in our village were all familiar faces, and there was no need to fear anything. The next day, when I went back to get milk, I was surprised to see that Dinu Chacha's son was there instead of him. When he saw me, there was a strange glint in his eyes. As he poured the milk into the container, his hand brushed against mine lightly. A strange sensation passed through me. No boy had ever tried to touch me like that before, nor had anyone ever spoken to me this way. It was new to me, but somehow it felt good. Suddenly I found myself feeling interested in him. From then on, whenever I visited, he started making small talk with me. He would sometimes add extra milk to the container and tell me, "Take this extra milk, it'll be good for your health." When my mother would see the extra milk, I'd lie and say, "Dinu Chacha added it himself." My mother would thank him and say, "He was a good friend of your father's. He used to come to our house often, but after your father passed away, he stopped coming. He said it wasn't appropriate for a widowed woman to have visitors in her home. People talk too much. A widow has to be careful. Life becomes much harder for her. He's a good man, and that's why I let you go there without any hesitation." I couldn't help but think about his son as my mother spoke. He was very handsome, and every time I thought about him, my heart would race. At my age, it was natural to be interested in these kinds of things. I started to like him. I had never shared this with anyone, not even Pino, with whom I shared everything. But this time I kept this secret to myself. The next time I visited, Amjad told me, "Come a little earlier tomorrow. We'll spend time together and talk." I blushed and looked down, feeling shy. The next day I went a little earlier to his barn. His house was a bit far, and the women in his family only came and went in the evenings. Dinu Chacha was usually busy with other tasks, and it was Amjad who took care of the milk deliveries. Because we couldn't afford to pay extra, we always went to get the milk ourselves. That day I arrived at the barn, feeling different. I had applied kajal to my eyes and a light tint to my lips, trying to look my best. As soon as Amjad saw me, he started complimenting me, his hand gently holding mine. Everything felt so new to me. I was overwhelmed with embarrassment and quickly pulled my hand away. He said, "I love you. I care for you. But I feel like you don't like me. If you did, you wouldn't have pushed me away like this. If you really liked me, you wouldn't have rejected me." I sat down silently, trying to prove my feelings. But when his actions became too bold, when his advances crossed the line, I felt scared and began to cry. Seeing me in tears, he seemed confused, but perhaps also frustrated deep inside. He softened his tone and said, "Why are you so upset? I love you and none of this is wrong. Love involves all of this. People do even more for love. I haven't even done anything yet. What's there to cry about?" Despite his words, my tears continued to flow. Eventually, he released my hand and said, "Okay, go back home." Afterward, Amjad's anger started to bother me. I grew anxious, wondering how I could make things right with him. He stopped talking to me. When I visited, he would silently pour milk into my container, then turn away. This was his clear way of showing his displeasure. Finally, I decided to confront him. I said, "If you want to continue this, you'll need to marry me first. I can't do this before marriage." He looked at me thoughtfully, then replied, "You're still too young, and I'm not yet ready either. I'm afraid if I talk to your parents, they won't accept me, but I can't live without you. I want to marry you. You'll have to wait a little while, but in the meantime, we can spend time together." I firmly told him, "You can't touch me before we're married." He glared at me for a moment, then sighed and said, "Okay, it's your choice." The next day, he asked me to come earlier. "I want to talk to you about our future. Some things I want you to understand," he said. I blushed, lowering my head. I could tell he loved me by the way he spoke to me with such warmth. When I arrived the next day, I dressed casually as usual, and he immediately began complimenting me again. This time, he brought me a glass of milk. I didn't really like milk, so I told him. He insisted, "This is goat's milk. It's really good for you. I drink it too. It will help enhance your beauty. You'll see the difference." Reluctantly, I took the glass, and as soon as I drank it, a sudden drowsiness washed over me. I didn't know how long I slept, but when I woke up, I found Amjad standing right in front of me. He smiled when he saw that I had woken up. "You've been asleep for so long. I've been waiting to talk to you, but it looks like you were up all night. That's why you're sleeping like a lifeless person now," he said, making me feel embarrassed. I replied, "I don't know what happened. Suddenly I felt so sleepy. When I got home, I couldn't stop thinking about why I had become so drowsy all of a sudden. After that, it happened 3 or 4 more times. Every time I held that glass, sleep would take over me. And when I woke up, Amjad would complain, 'You come to spend time with me, but then you fall asleep. You don't talk to me.' His sulking attitude made me anxious, and I would try to apologize and calm him down. After a lot of effort, he would relent and say, 'Tomorrow, no matter what, you have to come early, but don't sleep here.' His words made me laugh out loud. The same routine continued for several days, and slowly, I started to suspect what was in that milk that made me so sleepy. Whenever I drank it, I would fall into a deep sleep and lose all awareness. Amjad's affection for me seemed to fade, and he didn't seem as eager to spend time with me anymore. His enthusiasm had waned, and I was left confused. One day, I started to notice a change in my health. When I realized the reason for the change in my body, fear gripped me. What if my mother found out about this? The most terrifying question was, what had caused this change? Then it hit me. Every time I went to meet Amjad in his room, he would give me goat's milk. I didn't know what was in it, but it always made me feel drugged. It was clear now that Amjad had something to do with this. But I couldn't tell my mother. I feared how she would react, and I couldn't even imagine what she would do. If Amjad found out, I told her, he would likely try to distance himself from me, but he would never truly accept me. I had learned that much. But I needed answers. Was Amjad really the cause of all this? Today, after a long time, Amjad handed me the glass of milk again. I decided this time I wouldn't drink it. When he went out to fetch water, I quickly threw the milk away, pretending I had drunk it. I lay down on the bed and closed my eyes. When Amjad came back and saw me lying there, he chuckled. "I've used this girl as much as I could," he said with a cruel grin. "Today I'll take advantage of her one last time. After that, I'll find a way to get rid of her. Let it not happen that a trouble arises for me and this girl clings to me." Then, when Amjad approached me with ill intentions, I suddenly opened my eyes. Seeing me wake up like this, Amjad got flustered and said, "You were sleeping. You were in a dream. What is all this? How did you wake up? You were in a very deep sleep. You hadn't drunk milk. You had said all that in a daze." Now I grabbed him by the collar and began to tell him, "Whatever you have done to me, I will never forgive you for it. You have wronged me a lot. You have played with my honor. You have taken advantage of my naivety and emotions. I was an orphan girl. You took advantage of my orphanhood and loneliness. You tarnished my honor, left me unworthy of showing my face to anyone. And you know that since all this, I am now going to be the mother of your child. And if someone finds out about this, what will happen? Mother will kill me, and you are a man. Your family will curse you for a few days. But after that, everything will be fine, and you will be immersed in your own world, in your life. But my mother and I will not be able to show our faces to anyone." Saying this, I burst into tears. Then I heard the sound of footsteps outside. Amjad panicked and immediately ran outside, but seeing this, he took a deep breath, realizing that no one was outside. Then he came back to me and said, "Leave here. Marrying a girl like you is out of the question. I don't even want to see your face. You yourself came into my lap crying, and all this happened with your consent. I did not forcefully do anything to you. All of this included our mutual consent. Now go to hell, and I don't know whether this child is mine or someone else's. I don't know how many people you have made a fool of." Regarding his accusations, my eyes were wide open in astonishment. Whatever had happened, Amjad had forced himself upon me. I had not consented to it at all. I was completely unaware, but now he was clearly accusing me, trying to evade the matter, and trying to pin the blame on me. This time I folded my hands in front of him and began to say to him, "Take me as yours, give me your name, otherwise I will become infamous. No one will be willing to accept me. My mother will die while I'm still alive. There's not even a shadow of my father over me who could hide me in his dense shade. People will make all sorts of accusations, and the honor of my mother's entire life will be trampled to dust." But he cursed me and left me there. And then when I came home crying and weeping, seeing the expressions on my face, my mother also became worried and said, "What's the matter? Why do you look so exhausted and defeated?" But what could I tell my mother? I have been looted. I have killed myself while still alive. Despite being deeply loved, I couldn't tell my mother about this. Day by day, I was drying up and becoming like a thorn. Now I was always ill and felt weak. I didn't even feel like getting out of bed. Seeing my condition, my mother remained worried. She kept talking about taking me to the village healer, and just hearing this would make me panic. If my secret were to be exposed, thinking beyond that was impossible for me. I was seriously contemplating whether to save my life from this ordeal or end my own life, thus ending this disgrace associated with me. Now I had clearly refused my mother that I would not go to fetch milk. My mother herself would go there, panting and shivering, and come back completely lying down on the bed. She would tell me, "Get well soon. At least take this one thing upon yourself." She knew that my elderly bones didn't have much strength, that I couldn't do so much, and I would listen to her words but only half hear them. After my father, my mother lived her entire life with honor. She never gave anyone the opportunity to question her character. And me? What had happened to me? How could I commit such a big mistake? Then one day Uncle Dino came to our house, took my mother, and went into a room. I don't know what conversation they had. No matter how long Uncle Dino stayed in the room, I kept running around the room, but I didn't hear anything. I couldn't have guessed what Uncle Dino had told my mother. After that, my mother began to stay worried, always looking lost in thought, and I didn't know what she was thinking. I suspected that Uncle Dino had found out something. He must have told my mother all of this. That's why my mother started behaving so absent-minded. And again, one day, when the three uncles came to our house after they left, my mother burst into tears. I mustered up all my courage and went to my mother. Her tears reached me, and I began to ask her for forgiveness. Then my mother looked up at me while crying and said, "What are you asking forgiveness for?" I told her, "Whatever happened to me, knowingly or unknowingly, please forgive me." Saying this, I also began to cry. My mother wiped my tears and then said, "Your new life is about to begin. You are going to another home, and you shouldn't start your new life by crying and weeping like this." Upon hearing my mother's words, I jerked my head up and looked at her, asking, "What do you mean? What are you trying to say?" Then she said, "A few days ago, Uncle Amjad came to ask for your hand in marriage for Amjad. He says that this week, through a simple marriage, you will be married to Amjad and taken away with him." Hearing my mother's words, my mouth fell open in astonishment. I couldn't believe that such a thing could happen. How could Amjad agree to marry me? I thought my life was over, but thank God he saved my life from being ruined. Then the blessed day of Friday arrived, the day I was to leave and go to my in-laws' house. I came back to my in-laws' house and was waiting for Amjad with a pounding heart. For some reason, I had the suspicion that Amjad would mistreat me because that day he had clearly told me that I was a girl of bad character. How could he now be willing to include me in his life? When Amjad came to me, he clasped his hands in front of him and began to apologize, saying, "I have treated you very badly, wronged you, and taken advantage of your innocence. Thank God I was saved from committing more sins that day. Father had heard everything, and he punished me severely. He couldn't believe that all of this had happened with your consent, and he had also obtained those intoxicating medicines that I used to mix into your milk. Now that everything had come to light, I told Father that I had been making you use intoxicating drugs and had been playing with your honor." Hearing this, Mother and Father expressed a lot of hatred towards me. They started saying, "You have ruined a girl's life. Now include her in your life." When I refused, they threatened to throw me out of the house. Then I realized that I shouldn't have done this. I also had two young sisters at home. If today I was playing with someone's honor, tomorrow the same could happen with my own sisters. Where would I go then? "Forgive me," I said. "I have wronged you so much and been so abusive." Saying this, I burst into tears and I forgave him. After all, I truly loved him, and in love, one must be patient and forgiving. It is necessary to forgive even the greatest mistakes of the beloved, and I had also managed to be patient and forgiving.